Trump defends his decision to fire the director of the FBI. James Comey had been investigating allegations of Russian interference in the presidential election. But in a move that shocked America, Trump wrote to Mr. Comey to tell him his job was terminated.
He wasn't doing a good job, very simply. He was not doing a good job.
Also tonight, the schoolgirl full of love and always smiling who died when she fell from a theme park water ride.
She was a lovely, sweet-natured girl, and she was loved by everyone at the school.
No criminal charges for Conservative politicians over claims of election expenses fraud. And why the Lake District is inspiring a hill walker in his battle against Alzheimer's.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. America is still reeling tonight after Donald Trump's shock decision to fire the director of the country's senior law enforcement agency, the FBI. The president today defended his sacking of James Comey, saying people would be thanking him when things calm down. Well, despite denials from the Trump camp, many of his opponents say this is all about the FBI investigation into alleged links between Russia and the presidential campaign. It's now being claimed Mr. Comey had asked for more resources for the probe. Our Washington correspondent Robert Moore has the latest.
Good morning. First the firing, now the fallout.
It was a stunning development that caught even this town, with all of its leaks and rumours, completely by surprise.
He's become more famous than me.
Never before has an American president fired an FBI director who is actively investigating him. And a short time ago, Trump, while meeting with Henry Kissinger, made his first comment on the firestorm that he's ignited, but still revealed almost nothing about his real motive.
Director Comey, why did you fire Director Comey?
Because he wasn't doing a good job, very simply. He was not doing a good job.
James Comey himself only found out about his dismissal from media reports while in California. News helicopters scrambled to track his return to Washington amid rampant speculation that the real reason the director had been fired was to shut down his investigation into links between Trump associates and the Kremlin.
The first question the administration has to answer is why now? I have said from the get-go that I think a special prosecutor is the way to go, but now, with what's happened, it is the only way to go. Only way to go to restore the American people's faith. Are people going to suspect cover-up? Absolutely.
But the vice president is in full damage control mode, saying there is no Russian connection.
That's not what this was about. The president took strong and decisive leadership here to put the safety and security of the American people first by accepting the recommendation of the Deputy Attorney General.
In a bizarre twist, the Russian foreign minister is in town.
Does the Comey firing cast a shadow over your talks, gentlemen?
Was he fired?
Yes.
You are kidding. You are kidding.
Sergei Lavrov mocking the media, pretending he knew nothing of a story that is reverberating across Washington. The main problem for the White House is that few believe the official explanation for the Comey firing, that the FBI director mishandled the Hillary Clinton email scandal. After all, on the campaign trail, Trump had applauded that very intervention by Comey.
And it took guts for Director Comey to make the move that he made in light of the kind of opposition he had.
There are many dangers now lurking for the Trump White House. Not least that Comey seeks revenge on the president who last night humiliated him and reveals what he knows about those ongoing Russian investigations. Well, it's now being widely reported here that actually only last week James Comey had asked the Department of Justice for more resources to expand his investigation into those alleged links between Trump associates and Russian officials. So in the eyes of many here on Capitol Hill, that only adds to the suspicion of why exactly Comey was fired. Remember, Trump has already dismissed the acting Attorney General, Sally Yates. He has dismissed a senior prosecutor in Manhattan. He has asked the National Security Advisor, Mike Flynn, to leave, and now Comey. That is quite some body count, with no one predicting what happens next.
Robert Moore in Washington. Thank you. Here, a grieving family paid a poignant tribute today to the little girl who died after falling from a theme park water ride. In a statement, the family of 11-year-old Eva Janath said, "Words cannot describe the pain and loss we feel. Our world is torn apart." The park at Drayton Manor in Staffordshire remained closed today as investigations into the accident continue. Ben Chapman reports.
She was a beautiful little girl who was full of love. The words of Eva Janet's family, who say their world has been torn apart, devastated they will never see her again. It is a loss also being felt at her school, which organised the trip to Drayton Manor, which stayed closed today as a mark of respect.
She was a lovely, sweet-natured girl, and she was loved by everyone at the school. As a school and as a community, we are trying to make sense of this terrible tragedy.
At Drayton Manor, health and safety officials arrived at the Splash Canyon ride to begin their investigation into how Eva Janet fell into the water. The school wouldn't comment on whether an adult was in the raft with the children at the time. Safety guidelines say anyone can ride Splash Canyon unaccompanied as long as they're 1.1 metres tall. Up to 6 people can ride in each raft. There are no seat belts or harnesses, though riders are warned to stay seated and hold on tight while riding. But this video, filmed recently at Drayton Manor, appears to show young people on Splash Canyon standing up while the raft is moving. And accidents have happened before. 10-year-old Patrick Tracy fell into the water on the same ride 4 years ago. His mother believes if her concerns had been taken seriously, Eva's death might have been prevented.
It was almost like when your child stood, so that's the danger. If you stand, you're going to fall in. And I just think that's quite a shoddy, not very safe approach to be, for members of the public. That's just not safe. Kids will stand, and if they don't want children to be standing, then seat them and get them belted in.
Drayton Manor said it couldn't comment on the claims while the investigation here is ongoing, but says the safety of its visitors is of paramount importance. Drayton Manor hasn't said whether this park will reopen to visitors tomorrow, but a statement issued tonight on behalf of Eva Janet's family has called for the Splash Canyon ride to remain closed until a full investigation has been completed. Similar rapids rides at Alton Towers and Thorpe Park have also been closed until more is known about what happened here yesterday.
OK, Ben Chapman at Drayton Manor Theme Park. Thank you. Theresa May hailed today's decision not to bring criminal charges over Conservative election expenses in the 2015 election as proof that candidates did nothing wrong. Prosecutors said candidates and officials may have submitted inaccurate spending returns, but there wasn't enough evidence of dishonesty. Let's get more now from our political correspondent, Libby Vina.
It was the battle bus campaign bringing activists into key marginals, which many thought swung the 2015 election. So the issue of whether Tory MPs had spent more than they should locally was potentially explosive. Today's decision that there should be no charges, welcomed by the Prime Minister.
The CPS has decided, they're an independent body, they have decided that no charges will be brought against any candidate in relation to this matter. Candidates did nothing wrong. This is very important. I repeat that. I've said it now several times. Candidates did nothing wrong.
But the CPS didn't quite come to that conclusion, saying although there is evidence to suggest the returns may have been inaccurate, there is insufficient evidence to prove to the criminal standard that any candidate or agent was dishonest. Among those cleared today, Carl McCartney. He claims Tory candidates had been unfairly singled out.
Nobody willfully tried to disguise anything. We all obviously made the most about the fact that we had campaign buses coming to our constituency. Nobody has a problem with that. But if the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrats do something and the Conservatives do it in exactly the same way, why is it then fair that only the Conservatives, who happen to be the party that are in government, find that then they have their members of Parliament under investigation?
But Labour said the Electoral Commission's findings should be respected.
I think all of us as elected politicians should accept and respect the independence of all those legal authorities as well as the Electoral Commission and move on.
There was no doubt huge relief here at party headquarters at the CPS's decision, but the robust response of the party chairman today, suggesting that the entire police investigation had been a waste of time, conveniently ignores the fact that nationally the party has already been fined a record £70,000 for failing to report its expenses accurately. Police are also still investigating election expenses in relation to South Thanet, where Nigel Farage was defeated. But the Tories now no longer need to worry about any charges relating to the Battle Bus campaign ahead of this general election. Libby Vina, ITV News, Westminster.
Well, both Labour and the Liberal Democrats opened up a new front in the election campaign today by each pledging a major spending boost for education. Labour says it would be funded by a big hike in corporation tax, although it won't say yet if those plans include abolishing university tuition fees. The Lib Dems promised to reverse cuts to frontline education budgets. More on the Lib Dems in just a moment, but first, Rachel Younger reports from Labour's election campaign.
What are you doing here, restoration?
Jeremy Corbyn visited engineering students, knowing he needs to galvanise the parents and teachers who fear England's education system is being stripped of funding. And he hinted, more heavily than ever, that university tuition fees could go.
There's no promise here to scrap tuition fees. For university students, you're helping the few, not the many, aren't you?
You'll have to wait for the manifesto. I know you're desperate for it, and I've got some stuff in my pocket, but I'm sorry I'm not allowed to give it to you. Is that all right? Do you mind?
Well,
can you cope? Can you cope with the excitement?
We don't like to wait. I mean, it's fairly
clear,
isn't it?
I know you don't like to wait, but you're going to have to.
They're going to be
really
scrapped.
Sorry.
His party definitely does plan to commit £4.8 billion a year to boost schools in England, promising to reduce infant class sizes to under 30. The plan funded by a 7% rise in corporation tax, taking it to 26%, the same rate as in 2011. As every pupil learns, the devil's in the detail. Detail that on class sizes, the Shadow Education Secretary couldn't recall.
How many extra teachers will you need to be able to man this policy?
Well, first of all, we need to stop the crisis by teachers leaving the profession. We have record numbers of teachers leaving the profession because of the workload crisis that they have.
Sure, but these plans do have to be costed. How many more teachers are going to be needed?
Well, we've costed those programmes. You know that. It was just over £5 billion that we said that we'd need to fund the gap within schools' budgets at the moment.
But to cost that, you've got to know how many more extra teachers you're going to need to pay for.
Well, some of that depends on how many have left as well in the process. But of course, we will make sure that the teachers are in the classroom so that our children get the best possible education that they deserve.
But if elections are about numbers, just look at this. A welcome in York Labour won't want to forget.
We might be at squidging time now.
When politicians are making jam tarts with children, chances are it's education day on the campaign trail.
Do you use your hands?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the best bit.
So in Cornwall, the Liberal Democrat leader Tim Farron was rolling out the party's plans for these children's futures. The promise, a £7 billion investment to avoid their education being subject to cuts. It will be paid for by reversing tax cuts and using the money the government has earmarked for grammar schools.
I think you should be very proud of your work so far.
However, the subject of education is a sticky one for the Liberal Democrats. Breaking their promise not to raise tuition fees led in part to their decimation at the last election and still casts a shadow today.
Do you not have a massive problem, though, with education as a party and people just don't trust you?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about tuition fees, you're talking to the man who voted against the rise, because it's very important that you keep your promises. I never thought that was about fees. It was about honesty and about trust, and that's why when you make a promise, as we have today, over funding schools and colleges, then you show exactly where you're going to get the money from.
The Liberal Democrats know their proposals will never be enacted, but their hope is that when these children can vote, their party may be considered as a viable alternative for power, not just opposition.
Trial and error. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. That's life.
Emma Murphy, ITV News, Cornwall.
Well, Emily Morgan is with the Conservative campaign in Lincolnshire. Emily, what have the Tories said about the Labour and Lib Dem attacks on education?
Well, as you can imagine, Theresa May has defended the Conservative Party record on education. This morning she was asked whether she would commit more funding herself, and she simply said that funding in education is at record levels. She also said the party had helped get 1.8 million children into good or outstanding schools. Of course, they were scathing of the Labour and Liberal Democrat education plans. They dismissed Jeremy Corbyn's idea as nonsensical and said that the plan to raise corporation tax to 26% was simply a tax bombshell on small businesses. As for the Liberal Democrats, they said they're just as bad because they simply haven't made clear about how they will pay for it all. We won't get real detail of their education plans until the manifesto, but of course all eyes will be on whether there is more funding in what many describe as a crisis in the education system.
OK, Emily Morgan with the Tories and Scunthorpe, thank you. Still to come on the ITV Evening News, after expenses and education, what matters in the general election to people in Rhyl? And mountains of the mind, how the Lake District is helping one man's battle against Alzheimer's. Those stories and more after the break. Join me then. And again, welcome back. Now, a few minutes ago, we heard about how education and expenses are the issues preoccupying people in the general election. But what the parties want people to think about is not always what concerns the voters most. Martin Geisler has been to the North Wales coast to find out the election issues that matter to the people of Rhyl.
Even those who love the seaside resort of Rhyl would admit it's seen better days.
On the blue, 3 and 4.
Tourism's dwindling, the money's drying up, and a couple of blocks back from the promenade, life feels very real and very raw. Helen Howley works a few hours a week in a florist, one of 2 part-time jobs which supplement her limited benefits as she struggles to bring up her 2 children.
It doesn't matter how much you look for a job round here, everybody's in the same boat. There's not enough jobs around because all the businesses are closing.
And how's this for a bleak verdict on modern Britain?
If I knew when I had my kids what the world was going to be like and what the country and government were going to be like, I wouldn't have had kids.
This is an area beset by crime and social problems, and the system is stretched to its limit.
So what's the plans for your music group this week?
Veronica Wells opened a small drop-in centre in Prestatyn. It's a charity, but the local agencies have started sending their patients to her.
If social services and health are actually sending people to me, a small charity in Prestatyn, North Wales, you can bet, yes, we're being dumped on. We are.
What do you think that says about the system itself?
It's broken. Seriously, it's broken.
Down on the seafront, there's a bowls match going on. I watched with Pat and Anne. They're worried about the gulf between rich and poor in Britain. They're being left behind, they told me. Jeremy Corbyn's going to sort all that out, isn't he?
Oh, he thinks he is. But where's he going to get the money from to do it? You know, I mean, where are they going to get the money to do it? I mean, they just take the country further into debt all the time.
Do you think anybody can fix it?
No. I think we've just gone beyond fixing, actually.
But the country's broken beyond repair?
Seems that way, doesn't it?
Still, sun's shining.
Oh, it's great.
That's all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just a shame for the town there aren't more people out on the beach these days to enjoy it. Martin Geisler, ITV News, in Rhyl.
The funeral of the footballer Ugo Ehiogu has taken place in North London. The former England player died at the age of 44 after collapsing at Tottenham's training centre last month. He'd been working at Spurs as a youth coach. And the DJ Robert Miles, famous for his biggest hit, Children, has died at the age of 47. He'd been suffering from cancer. The Italian musician's dance anthem was a worldwide hit in 1996. And finally, ever since he was diagnosed, Sion Jer has been using his love of some of Britain's most beautiful scenery to help him cope with Alzheimer's disease. Every day he walks the peaks and fells of the Lake District, guided by his intimate knowledge of its paths. Well, now he's in a race to pass on that knowledge to others before the condition consumes his memory. Damon Green went walking with him.
Sion has walked in these hills his whole life. It's something he's always loved, and when he was diagnosed with dementia, he feared that this experience would be lost to him forever.
It came as a real shock. I felt numb mentally, and I didn't know what to say for a while. And all I thought about for days and days afterwards, probably longer than that, was the word Alzheimer's. That's all that went through my mind, you know, nothing else. And I asked, you know, well, what do we do now? And they said, well, nothing. You've been given a death sentence in a sense. You never know when it's going to be, and you just really don't know how to deal with it initially until you start coming to terms with it.
The only comfort he found was walking. His memory might fail him, but his abiding love of this place was as strong as ever, and planning a walk every day helped him to see a path he knew he could follow.
I just think, I'll do that tomorrow, and I don't think beyond that. And that has helped me cope because, you know, I'm just concentrating on what I can do, both time-wise and also physically and mentally.
He climbs this hill near Coniston every day, sometimes twice. He knows every ridge on the horizon, every rock on the path, and even as he struggles with dementia, these hills give him something he can depend on.
We get up to Windy Gap, which is just
now with the support of his partner Wendy, he works as a teacher in mountain navigation, helping others, he says, as a way for dementia sufferers to realise their lives still matter.
If they can pass something on to somebody else, something that's inherent in them, then that's going to give them a sense of value. And they're not just going to sit back in the chair thinking my life's over, I've got nothing to offer. They have got something to offer. Everybody's got something to offer.
Alzheimer's is a condition he can never escape, but the mountains have helped him find his own way to cope. Damon Green, ITV News in Cumbria.
That's all for now. Tom Brepp is here at 10, but from me and all the team, have a great evening. Bye-bye.